In every Christmas season, my community would host events for all the families to come together and celebrate. And every Christmas Eve, my neighbors would organize a big party that I was often invited to join. With the music, delicious food, and joyful vibes, I always had a great time. However, this year felt a little different. All my good friends were unable to make it back home for the holidays, so I was spending Christmas Eve alone at home. As the clock struck 8, I could hear the loud music and laughter coming from my neighbor's packed party across the street. After a simple dinner, I was ready to cozy up on the couch for a nice movie night. But soon there was a faint knock on the door that broke the peaceful silence. I walked over, puzzled, and looked out the peephole. There stood a shabby middle-aged man I'd never seen before, wearing an old wrinkled trench coat. His complexion looked sickly pale with messy stubbles covering his face. I hesitated briefly before opening the door. "Hello, how may I help you?" The man cleared his throat. "Well, I just moved into this neighborhood. You probably haven't seen me yet." I nodded, signaling him to continue. "I noticed you're home with the lights on while everyone else seems to be at that house party over there. I have a bit of an emergency situation and was looking for a restroom, but all public ones are locked." He shrugged. "So I was wondering if I could trouble you to use your bathroom?" Instantly alarm bells went off in my head. A total stranger showing up late into the night with the excuse of needing the bathroom? It was way too suspicious. I smiled politely. "I'm terribly sorry, but my bathroom is broken at the moment. Maybe you could try the stores nearby." The man looked sorely disappointed, but still nodded in understanding. Then he took a step back, scanning me and my home with an unsettling stare. I felt extremely uncomfortable under his invasive gaze. "I suggest you seek help elsewhere." I shut the door promptly and double-locked everything. Peering through the peephole, I saw the expressionless man continue lurking right outside my home, staring at the door for what felt like forever. I held my breath nervously until he finally shuffled away after a few painstaking minutes. I sighed in relief but still felt uneasy about this. The abnormal interest this stranger showed in my property suggested malicious intents. Just as I picked up the phone to call for police backup, a sudden banging exploded against my front door, nearly giving me a heart attack. "Open up. I know you're in there." The man roared furiously from outside, all the while hammering violently away at my door. I shakily dialed 911 with trembling hands, begging for emergency help. I shut off all lights and hid inside my closet upstairs, praying desperately for the police to arrive fast. The deranged banging persisted for 15 agonizing minutes, loud enough to make my sturdy door scream in protest. Just when I thought it was about to be smashed down, a sharp police siren wailed loudly from nearby. "This is the police. Freeze and step away from the door." I heard shouts, footsteps, and then sounds of a scuffle. After that, an eerie silence blanketed everything. A while later I finally emerged from the closet and crept to the stairs. 3 fully geared SWAT officers stood staring up at me in confusion before one gestured for me to come down. I cautiously descended to find the stalker already arrested and removed from premises. The upstairs hallway was left in complete disarray though, evident of the intense fight that must have broke out earlier. I shivered, imagining the possibilities of what could have transpired here tonight. The deputy on duty informed me they were patrolling nearby when they heard my 911 call. My neighbors filled them in on the harassment I just went through. "This guy most likely had ill intentions and some sinister agenda," he said gravely. I shuddered as the memories of those cold, malicious eyes came flooding back. I could have been in fatal danger tonight. After sincerely thanking the officers for their rescue, I was still left badly shaken by this entire horrid ordeal. I started questioning if this neighborhood was truly safe, and what exactly that creepy stranger had plotted to do here. While I kept telling myself to stop overthinking, the image of his bone-chilling grin still haunted my dreams every night. I could never look at another peaceful Christmas Eve the same way again. The shadowy side of humanity would always serve as a harsh reminder now to be vigilant of my surroundings. Perhaps it's time I consider a fresh start elsewhere. After all, Christmas should be for spreading joyful cheer, not encountering deranged strangers at your door. It happened the Christmas before last. I had rented a cabin by myself high up in the mountains, hoping to spend the holidays alone there. The cabin sat halfway up a remote peak, surrounded by nothing but trees and snow. The nearest town was 15 miles away. The secluded environment suited me perfectly since I don't like crowds. I usually work in the city, but my doctor suggested I go somewhere peaceful to recuperate from medical issues. I happened to have extra vacation time, so I took off early and found this mountain retreat. The owner was a kindly old man who warned me the only downside was no internet or cell reception. But that was fine with me. A few days completely off the grid sounded great. Because of the high altitude, it was already winter in December even though the cabin was far south. Everywhere I looked was a silvery frozen scene. I drove up the winding mountain roads, taking in increasingly majestic vistas. Around 6 p.m. I finally arrived at the little log cabin. Stepping inside, a wave of crisp, cold air rushed to meet me. The cabin had some years on it. The walls and furniture were a bit worn, but mostly it felt cozily nostalgic. I set my bags down and explored a bit before lying down on the soft, comfy bed. After so many years in the city, I hadn't experienced this kind of rustic mountain living in a long time. I opened the window to let the fresh outside air in. The setting sun bathed the snowy peaks in a golden glow, filling me with Christmas cheer. After taking out the trash, I warmed myself by the fireplace. As darkness fell, I closed the windows and turned on the lights. Outside was pitch black except for the occasional chirping bug or hooting owl. I watched TV and sipped hot tea until I started feeling tired. After brushing my teeth, I climbed into the big cozy bed under a thick down comforter and quickly fell asleep in the stillness. Around 2 or 3 a.m., I was shocked awake by a loud bang-bang knocking at my door. I shot up, rubbing my eyes vigorously in the darkness as a second knock rang out. I was terrified and confused. Who could possibly be visiting me this late, in this remote location, in this weather? I clutched the blankets tightly as more rapid knocks kept coming. I froze stiffly, not even breathing, just staring wide-eyed at the dark doorway. After a few seconds the knocking stopped, and I started to relax. But suddenly a chilling cackle of laughter burst out, shocking me to my core. It was an unusually loud, harsh sound piercing the still night air. I cowered under the covers until the laughter faded from raucous guffaws to soft chuckles before disappearing altogether. Only then did I dare poke my head back out. I strained my ears but didn't hear anything else outside. Still shaking badly with chattering teeth, I didn't dare leave my bed. I just sat hugging my knees, watching the occasional flash of light outside my window, which I figured was someone waving a cell phone flashlight around. I forced myself to calm down and try calling 911, before remembering the owner said there was no signal here. Feeling helpless, I continued sitting frozen in place, eyes glued to the doorway. I don't know how much time passed before the faintest glow of dawn allowed me to examine my surroundings. The door and windows seemed untouched, yet I still couldn't believe no one had been there. After hesitating a bit, I decided to check outside just to make 100% sure. I cautiously approached the door, took a deep breath, and flung it open. Only darkness greeted me. Shining my phone around revealed no traces of an intruder. I also stuck my head out the back window but didn't see anything amiss. I felt marginally relieved but still fearful. Glancing at my watch, I saw it was barely dawn. Not wanting to act rashly, I decided to keep observing for anything suspicious. I carefully stole back to the bedroom and watched out the window for over an hour until I felt confident nothing lurked outside. I quickly ate breakfast before packing up, locking the cabin, and driving off the mountain. As soon as I got cell reception, I called 911 to report the incident. The police came to investigate but found no evidence of trespassers or foul play. The case remains unsolved, but later I read similar reports online of knocking and laughter by previous occupants of the cabin. Having two separate accounts seems to confirm this wasn't just my imagination running wild. Still, remembering that night makes my skin crawl. My guess is some local troublemakers were playing a twisted prank, but the true motive remains a mystery. This incident happened on Christmas Eve last year. That year I was living alone in a small cabin tucked in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. It was a 2-bedroom cabin passed down from my grandfather, situated deep in the scarcely populated mountains. I had no family around and was usually too busy with work to come back here except for some occasional breaks every few months. That evening a heavy snowstorm rolled in as I was wrapping things up to head home for the holidays. The woods were still and ghostly, the mountain roads almost impassable. I carefully maneuvered my pickup trying to make my way home, with the GPS on my phone constantly losing signal amidst the piling snow. This was my second attempt to spend Christmas back home. Last Christmas Eve I also got caught in a similar blizzard and had to sleep next to a fire I started halfway through the night right out of my truck. I definitely didn't want to relive that rough experience again. Thanks to the sudden blizzard, I arrived almost 3 hours later than usual. It was close to midnight when I finally pulled over to my cabin, cold and trembling. I grabbed some food supplies and necessities from the truck bed and hurried inside the cabin. The smell of burning firewood lingering inside brought me slight comfort. I quickly restarted the fireplace and took out some cured ham from the fridge to heat up for a warm meal. Right then, a series of urgent knocks landed on my door, followed by a hoarse male voice. "Please open the door, sir. It's freezing cold out here." I cautiously opened the door to find a scruffy middle-aged man standing outside, thick stubble all over his face and ice frozen to his beard. He pleaded if he could take shelter from the blizzard overnight in my house, and promised he would leave at first light tomorrow. I refused him directly through the slight gap of the door. "I'm sorry, I can't let a stranger in. You may find a motel in town to hide from the weather." The man didn't leave. Instead, he started begging me to open the door. After being declined several times, his tone grew increasingly impatient. "Please, buddy, it's life or death cold out here. I'm going to freeze to death." I knew there had been some home invasion cases in the mountainside lately. Living alone in such a remote area could indeed be very dangerous. I decided to call the police for assistance. Right during the phone call, the man suddenly started banging loudly at my door, with such force it nearly sounded as if it would smash open any second. Shocked, I quickly ended the call and locked the door. Seeing I was calling for backup, the guy finally stopped hitting but began cursing outside. I was terrified. The nearest highway was at least 20 minutes drive away. No telling when the police could arrive in such nasty weather. I turned off all the lights in the house, quietly grabbed a rifle to protect myself, and crouched in the corner praying hard. Then a few minutes later, I heard faint rattling from the window, as if someone was trying to pry it open. I gripped my gun pointing at the dim moonlight outside. A pair of bloodshot eyes stared back at me from the window before escaping into the darkness upon eye contact. I knew the man was standing right below my windowsill. Was he attempting to break in directly from outside? I felt extreme panic taking over me. Thankfully, the police sirens arrived rather shortly, eventually pulling over in front of my cabin. The two officers examined the premises thoroughly after stepping out of their vehicle, but the creepy man was nowhere to be found. They told me he was very likely the home invader active in this area recently, lurking around my house and ready to commit his crime, but luckily I called the cops on time. I heaved a sigh of relief, thanking God for his blessings. Otherwise, I could have easily become another Christmas Eve tragedy on the news this year. Later, I installed monitoring cameras and a security system outside the cabin, but that man's spine-chilling eyes and lurking figure outside my window still haunt my nightmares from time to time.